So today I will going to discuss the other theoretical and historical perspective on family. So first, let me discuss the contemporary perspective in the sociology of family. So let us define what is secondship. So secondship is referring to the woman's dual roles at work at home. Meaning this is the dual roles of women in at work and at home, and also the unpaid labor performed at home, after work, and job at work. So, for example, childcare duties, household duties, and also according to the book The Second Ship by Arlie Hochschild, that the household responsibilities a wife that a wife and a mother care of aside from her paid working job. And since 1990s, an important body of sociological literature on the family has emerged that draws on feminist perspectives. Next, the formation and dissolution of families and households. So, that formulation begins the primary concern about the larger and transformation in norms, and also the evolving expectation within personal relationship. So next, the rise in divorce and single parenting. So then the issues on divorce and single parenting also involved in the contemporary perspective of sociology and the families. Next, the emergence of reconstituted families or remarriages, same-sex families, and popularity of cohabitation and child-free families are all topics of inquiry. So, for example, the living arrangement of American children have been strongly affected by revolutionary and social changes in past 30 years. Large decreases in first marriages rate and an increases in likelihood of married couples to divorce have resulted in a wide diversity of living arrangements for children. Also, remarriages have become almost as common as first marriages in contemporary America. Suppose. So next, shifting gender roles within families. So the shifting roles within a families occur where men's and women's traditional roles have converged or even crossed over. The recession disproportionately struck male industry such as finance and manufacturing. An increased number of households now have breadwinner wives and dads who either stay at home with children or juggle part-time work with child rearing. Next, number of stay-at-home dad has doubled since 1989 from 1.1 million to 2 million in 2012. Fathers now represent 16% of stay-at-home parents, up from 10% in 1989. So through that occurrence, the cultural images also are starting to reflect such trend, with popular media replete with images of stay-at-home dads. According to A. Williams 2012, at and women who wear the funds in the family, according to Rosing 2012, this transformation within our families are inextricably tied to the larger changes occurring at the societal and even global level. The historical perspective on families. So, pre-modern household size was indeed larger than it is today. Extended families were believed to prevail, and family members were mutually dependent on and supported of one another. However, the notion that the extended family was predominant form of family in pre-modern Western Europe has been disproved. Historical research shows that the nuclear family has long been preeminent. Pre-modern household size was indeed larger than it is today. So for example, in United States, throughout the 17th and 18th and 19th century, the average household size was 4.75%. This low number is partly due to the high proportion of Americans who live alone today, especially older widow women and young professionals who maintain their own home. Next, in modern pre-modern United States and Europe, children as young as 7 or 8 often worked, helping their parents on the farm. So most who did not remain in the family enterprise left the parental household at an early age to do domestic work for others or to follow apprentice, apprentices. Follow apprenticeships. Children who went away to work rarely show their parents again. Next, rates of mortality, number of deaths per 1,000 of population in 1 year for people of all ages were much higher. Both sexes' activities were considered fairly equally important for a family's survival. In horticultural and pastoral society, food was more abundant. So, other factors made family groups then even more impermanent than they are now. The notion of staying married until old age often was not realized due to mortality. The death of children or one of both spouses often shattered family relationship. So, let us know the family in American during colonial period. So, in this period, people are engaged in hunter and gathering. There are small group families composed of 2 and 3 nuclear families. And also, they consider doing works and activity fairly and even between men and women. They are pastoral and horticultural society. So next, the family in American colonial period. So they are a nomadic group of smaller nuclear families during American colonial period. Next is the non-nomadic have a larger extended families. So let us know the American families during and after industrialization. So people that time moves to cities. Men's income increased and there is authorization power of men and the marital division of labor emerged in 20th century. Thus the development of family life. So there are 3 phases in development of family from 15th to 18th century. First, the nuclear family that live in fairly small houses but maintain deeply embedded relationship within the community, including with other kin. So, according to Stone, although some historians have challenged this idea, the family was not a major focus of emotional attachment or dependence for its member, not in the way we associate with qualities with family life today. So, individual freedom of choice in marriage and other matters of family life were subordinated to the interests of parents, other kins, or the community. Sex within marriages was not regarded as source of pleasure but a necessity to reduce children. So, aside from aristocratic circles, where it was sometimes actively encouraged, erotic or romantic love was regarded by moralists and theologians as a sickness. So, according to Stone in 1980, as a sickness, it put the family during this period was an open-ended, low-key, unemotional authoritarian institutions, and it was also very shortly being frequently dissolved by the death of the husband or wife or the death or early departure from home of the children. So next is the transitional form of family that lasted from the early 17th century to the beginning of the 18th century. So the nuclear family become more separate entity, distinct from other kin and the local community, and there was a growing emphasis on marital and parental love, although the authoritarian power of fathers also increased. So according to this, there is a securement of unlove and attachment and the power of fathers authoritarian increase. Next phase is the third phase which emerged in mid 18th century. So affected individualism is a marriage's ties based on the personal choice and sexual attraction or romantic love, and sexual aspect of love become glorified within marriages instead of in extramarital relationship. Next, The family became geared to consumption rather than production as a result of workplace being separate from home. So in this, women become associated with domesticity and men will become the breadwinners, which originates among affluent group. This family type become fairly universal in Western countries with the spread of industrialization. In pre-modern Europe, marriage usually began as a property arrangement. In the middle years of marriage, the couple focused mainly on raising children, whereas in the later stages, marriage was about love. So, for example, few couples married for love, but many grow to love each other as they jointly manage their household, raise their children, and share a lifetime of experience together. But by contrast, in most of the modern West, marriages begin with a couple in love in its middle, or it is mostly about raising children if there are children, and marital quality wanes. Last, by later life, those couples whose marriages survive are typically marked by high levels of love, affection, and companionship. uh, I will going to discuss the last theoretical and historical perspective in the sociology of families. So, myth of the traditional families. Glorify the traditional nuclear family and vilify the new postmodern families. So, this is described by sociologist Judith Stacy. The critics of contemporary American families contrast the apparent decline of family with more traditional forms of family life from yesterday, and were families of the past as harmonious as many people recall or in this memory are idealized fictions. So, as Stephanie Cons by 1992 to 2005 points out that rosy glow cast on the traditional families fades when we delve into historical evidence about families in prior centuries. So, next, many admire the colonial families of 17th and 18th century as disciplined and stable, but it suffered from the same disintegrative forces as its counterpart in Europe. So by this, especially high death rates meant that the average marriage lasted less than 12 years and more than half of all children saw the death of at least one parent by the time they were 21. The much admired discipline of the colonial family was rooted in the strict authority of parents over their children, which would seem exceedingly harsh by today's standard. Next, black slaves in American South live and work in a feeding condition, and by 1918, every state required children to complete elementary school, which virtually eliminate the pool of workers. So, in the factories and workshop of the North, white families, many of whom were immigrants, worked long hours with little time for the home life. Children often work long hours under dangerous conditions in factories until states stated to pass compulsory schooling laws in late 19th and early 20th century. So, let us define the Victorian family of 1950s. So, it is also the less than ideal by contemporary standards. In this period, wives were more or less forcibly confined to the home. Women were expected to be virtuous and sexually restrained, while men were sexually licentious. Licentious. Wives and husbands often had little to do with each other, communicating only through their children. Moreover, domesticity wasn't even an option for poorer groups. Next, many people regard the 1950s as the time of the ideal American family culture in all television shows such as Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver, meaning um, women work only in home and men earn the family wage. Next, many had held paid jobs during World War II as part of war effort but lost those jobs when men returned from the war. So, moreover, men were often emotionally removed from their wives and observed a sexual double standard, seeking sexual adventures from themselves but setting strict codes for their spouses. So, next, Betty Friedan's best-selling book entitled The Feminine Mystic appeared in 1963. So Friedan struck a chord in the hearts of thousands of women when spoke of an oppressive domestic life bound up with childcare and endless drudgery, and a husband who often prioritized work over his family.